The wedding cake is a very key element in the menu, but also in the style of a wedding. It's the final gesture. I think of it as almost the punctuation mark for the entire event. And making wedding cakes has been elevated to a high art. It takes days, and in some instances, weeks to prepare and decorate these incredible confections. Now, I've got some amazing cakes here. They come from some of the world's most talented cake designers. First off, let's see a couple of creations from the cake designer to the stars, Sylvia Weinstock. Now, this is from Sylvia. Now, Sylvia practically created the concept of a couture wedding cake, and she has made cakes for tons of celebrities: Donald Trump, Michael Douglas, Star Jones, etc. Her first design is an incredibly elaborate bouquet of pink and white sugar flowers, all handcrafted by her and her team. It's 5 tiers covered with these amazing blossoms. There are stephanotis, there are stock, there are tulips, and there are these pink dusted white roses, and all of this is edible. We made her make this cake in fondant. She always uses buttercream, just for the record, but for show, we have to make it in fondant. But if you look at this, even on the fondant layer, there's a beautiful layer of almost royal kind of icing, a design that makes it sort of 3-dimensional, even on the surface of the cake itself. And it's also dusted with almost like crystalline sugar to make it sparkle. This cake is a cake for 300 people, but Sylvia will make cakes in all different shapes and sizes. Now we have another cake here that would be more appropriate. This is the 100-person size. Now, once again, this is in fondant, even though Sylvia is all about buttercream, but look at what we have going on here. Their famous sugar flowers completely decorate this cake, and she designed this to be for a tropical destination wedding. So the flowers are very exotic. They're in bright, bold hues, and you see that they're in pink and orange and green and purple, and they stand out against this sort of cream background with the exotic leaves and vines crawling all over it. Now, these are handmade hibiscus that you can see here. And each of these is individually hand sculpted. Each petal is made out of a sugar dough and then dried and then hand painted. Some of them are actually made, these are made out of actually colored dough, but other ones like these are actually hand painted. You can see that they are orange, but then they have dusting of pink along the side. Each one of these flowers, this might take 2 hours to make. It's a very labor-intensive style of cake decor, and you'll see that that's reflected in the price. A slice of this cake would be about $15 a person. But the great thing is, now Sylvia's cakes not only look, but they taste fabulous. So inside, if you can imagine on this cake, it's a classic yellow cake, but with 3 different fillings, because she cuts it into 3 layers. One with apricot, one with coconut, and one with lemon. Very tropical to match with the feel of the cake. A few tips to keep in mind when picking your cake. 1, a great looking cake that tastes bad, you've missed the point. It's supposed to be dessert. So make sure that even if it looks great, it must taste great too. 2, make sure that you taste the cake combination you're choosing before your order. And trust the baker, they know what combinations work and don't work. And 3, taste the cake at room temperature. That's when the flavor is at its fullest. Now let's take a look at a wedding cake from a New York City cake designer named Elisa Strauss of Confetti Cakes. This takes a turn from the floral to the preppy. Elisa incorporated a clean sort of grosgrain ribbon motif into this 4-tier confection. You see it uses light blue, a beautiful light blue, chocolate, and white underneath. The ribbons give it a textured, sort of graphic feeling while keeping the style very fresh and feminine. Blue and brown is an all-season color combination. The chocolate piping definitely lets it work for even seasons like winter, even though it's so bright and colorful. For fall, you might want to swap out the blue for pumpkin, or for summer, you could do pink and green. You get the idea. Now, Elisa actually also added another special touch to make it a bit unusual. Now take a look, there's a little sweet inscription along the bottom here. It says, TOKFY. It's an acronym that stands for tons of kisses for you, like a cute way to sign a letter. But you, of course, can have your baker write whatever you want your cake to say, like nicknames you have for another, or a special word from your vows, anything secret, what's on the inscription of your ring. This is just one way to make your cake different than the other cakes you've seen at every other wedding you've been to. Inside this incredible frosting is a marble cake of chocolate ganache and raspberry buttercream. Elisa also has a million unique flavors, from apple spice or carrot cake with cream cheese filling to chocolate hazelnut and espresso. Before I get on to another cake, if you're planning on using a cake designer like this, make sure that your reception site allows you to bring in off-site cake makers. Also, make sure to factor in cake cutting fees. They are sometimes about $1 a slice. The site charges these if their cake person is not being used. Also, here's a shortcut. Go to theknotau.com/cakes and you can get a list of all the questions to ask your baker. Stay tuned for more amazing cakes. Now let's move on to something even more modern. You may have noticed that swanky contemporary receptions are on the rise, set in lofts, art galleries, and photo studios. These weddings call for modern masterpieces. So, one of our favorite boutique cake designers, Kate Sullivan, sent us this awesome little Mod Squad cake. Kate used 60s inspired motifs, so like retro shapes and colors to decorate this cake. We have orange polka dots on the bottom layer, pink swirls and polka dots and flowers in the middle, and on the top, a funky green swirly pattern. This is a smaller scale cake. It's just right for kind of a swanky cocktail reception for 50, a destination wedding, or even little individual table cakes. Now, while we're talking scale, here's an FYI. Generally, 3 tiers serve 50 to 100 guests. You'll likely need 5 layers for 200 guests or more. Your cake baker will help you with those calculations. Another big trend to hit the wedding world is personalization, and your cake presents the perfect opportunity to make a personal statement. One of the best inspirations I've seen is incorporating your heritage into your wedding cake. This cake here, by New York City-based confectioner Gail Watson, was inspired by the Indian tradition of mehndi, which is painting an elaborate design on the bride's hands with henna on the evenings before the wedding. Now, Gail researched the traditional mehndi motifs extensively, and her cake is a white fondant icing with the hand-painted chocolate henna. Now, you'll see at the center of this chocolate design is something that's shaped a little bit like a heart. This is central to the henna designs done in India. And she used that as the focal point and then did sort of an elegant interpretation of mehndi around the edges. And you see it comes up also onto the top of the cake, and it's traditional in Indian cultures to use rich oranges and yellows and reds as the floral elements in like a chrysanthemums or things like that. And so she's used that to kind of top off the cake, and it's nice because it's a big kick of color. One of our absolutely favorite cake inspirations today is the bride's gown, because come on, let's face it, that's what it's really all about. Now, master cake designer Ron Ben Israel created this breathtaking cake based on a couture Monique Lullier gown we chose. It's an ivory re-embroidered lace gown with a lingerie bodice and a drop waist with a dramatic blue sash. Now, if you see what Ron did, he created a white-on-white sugar lace applique here. It's downright identical to the lace on the gown. And as you can see, he took those pieces and appliqued them all over the cake. Ron cleverly made blue satin-like bands, ribbon sashes, sort of alternating around tiers to match the ribbon on the dress. So it's on the second and the final tier. And you see he also has a bit of bling here. He actually made a brooch out of silver-looking paint and kind of attaches that bow there. And then I'm going to twist this around and show you on the back, because there's a complementing brooch there on the back of the cake as well. It's a wonderful interpretation of a gown cake. Now, this cake retails for about $1,800, and you can see all the intricate work that goes into it, and that's why. Now, if you want to achieve this look, bring a picture of your gown or a swatch of the fabric to your cake baker to try to do the same. And a cake like this, you'll definitely want to display throughout the reception. So here are some tips for your cake table. 1, make sure that there's a designated area that allows for the most elegant representation possible of your cake. Consider using cake as the decor outside the reception doors, right where the seating cards are placed, or some other element where it can kind of be a surprise moment as people walk into the reception space. And the 3rd tip is to make sure that there's the right lighting. You're going to want a pin spot on your cake no matter where it is to bring out its drama. Stay tuned for more wedding style. You chocolate lovers, don't feel left out. Of course, we would never do a cake segment without a cake for you. So chocolate used to be rare on wedding cakes, but now it is probably the most popular cake flavor. Confetti Cakes created this 1, 2, 3, 4-tier chocolate cake with an incredible design of white hydrangea. The icing, of course, is made of rolled fondant. They roll out these flat sheets and drape it over the layers of the cake. And every single flour is made of edible sugar dough and is hand painted. You see each of the leaves is made out of green dough, and the white hydrangeas are made out of white dough, and each of them is hand applied to make this amazing 3D look. Inside, you've got chocolate cake with praline buttercream filling. Yum. Now this cake is a really unique shape. It's a hexagon, 6 sides. It's nice because it has the height and the presence. It sort of feels like a traditional wedding cake, but it's got that modern edge of being a unique shape. And what's interesting about it is it has all this beautiful ornamentation all the way up with these flowers and the trimming and the beading around each layer. But then, because it has the detail, there's no cake topper. A cake with this much beautiful decoration doesn't really need something topping it off. Now here's a tip about flavor. So this is the everlasting dilemma, right? She loves chocolate, he loves vanilla. There's no need to argue. On your cake, you can alternate flavors and fillings by tier. A perfect compromise. And isn't that what marriage is all about? Now here's a cake in another surprising color. This is a bright green cake. And this is by Cheryl Kleiman. And what I love about this cake is how clean and modern it looks. The monochromatic green on green motif is so refreshing, and it creates a bit of texture while staying true to its simple side. Now the pleated lime green fondant icing creates an illusion of stripes. It's as clean as a blade of grass. It has a very fresh, feminine, springy kind of feel. And then she added a floral touch. You see there's a cascade of handcrafted orchids, and they complement the shade of green, the sort of pale shade of green underneath, by being a bright chartreuse green with little accents of purple and orange. It just completes the look. Cheryl also chose a playful flavor combination for this creation. Orange pound cake with key lime filling. Just perfect for a Palm Beach wedding, don't you think? Now what's nice about this design is that the pleating can be created in buttercream or fondant. Here's some related notes to jot down. If you're having an outdoor wedding in a hot climate, stay away from whipped cream, meringue, and buttercream because they all melt. And there's nothing worse than gorgeous sugar flowers slowly slipping off the cake. Our next cake is also by Cheryl Kleiman, and it reflects the trend we've been seeing for a while now, monogram. Cheryl Kleiman used a pearlized lavender fondant as the base for this monogram with little white pearl dots all over it. You have so many options when it comes to monogramming. It could be a single initial, it could be block print, it could be interlocking letters. Now remember, with your monogram, it's her initial, your joint initial, and his initial. Ladies first. And lastly, we have a sweet little vintage cake from Elisa Strauss. His vintage style is all over weddings, from gowns to invites, and now the cake. So for your shabby chic gals, this cake from Confetti Cakes uses like 1950s damask wallpaper for its feel. It has white camellias on a gorgeous 50s pink background. A very fun cake, and this would feed about 100 people. So that's it for our amazing cakes. To see many, many more, check out our awesome cake gallery on theknotau.com/cakes. There are pictures of cakes from all over the country to inspire you.